Welcome to That Entrepreneur Life, a podcast about entrepreneurship that takes you from idea to launch and beyond. Each week, your hosts, Andrew Lees and Clint McPherson, discuss different business topics aimed at adding value to any entrepreneur's journey.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of That Entrepreneur Life. I'm Andrew Lees, and I'm here with my co-host, Clint McPherson. What's up, brother?
Not much, my man. Just like always, I'm excited, brother. We got a special guest today, and I want to welcome him to the show, Trent Bray. What's going on, man?
Hey, guys. Appreciate being on here. This is an exciting opportunity.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, we're happy to have you on the show. Before we kind of get into everything and ask you a few questions and just discuss entrepreneurship, we'd love to just have you, introduce yourself real quick and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So, like I said, my name's Trent Bray. I live in Salt Lake City, Utah. Been married for 12 years now to a beautiful woman that has helped me bring 3 children into the world that I love dearly. And I love business, have been involved in it pretty much my whole life.
Awesome.
Love it, man.
Sounds like a great balance.
Yeah, for sure. My thing is, man, Trent, getting an interview with you, man, and being on your show recently, you can tell you're a genuine dude. And so it's a pleasure and honor to have you on, man. But with all that said in your introduction, man, can you take us back to where your entrepreneurial journey started and what it is about entrepreneurship that you're actually passionate about?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for the kind words. I appreciate that. I feel the same about you. Having talked with you, you're a very genuine individual. So, my entrepreneurship journey kind of started probably about age 6. I don't know the exact time frame, but I was really big into baseball cards. And so I collected baseball cards, ended up, getting duplicates and, some of the more rare cards, but I had multiples of them. So I go down to the local park, lay out a blanket, have some cards out there and sell them to people and, fund more baseball cards, but it's expanded from there. And where I really feel like my entrepreneurial journey began is at age 14. I looked at websites and I was like, there's a lot of opportunity here. So I didn't have a way to really learn websites. So I right-clicked on the web page, hit view source code and reverse engineered HTML and started designing web pages for other people.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Yeah, so you just got into it by I love that, reverse engineering something, not even worrying about, trying to, or actually just trying to teach yourself instead of, going out there and trying to get a whole lot of education on it before you started with anything. Like and you may have done that too, but it's really cool to just kind of figure it out on your own as you go.
Yeah. At the time, there wasn't a whole lot of resources. I mean, you had, WebMonkey that would tell you, the hex codes for the colors. And, I figured out I had to figure out how to do like scrolling text, all the cool things that were on websites in the late 90s. So
yeah. It's evolved from there for sure. A lot has happened. Sure. Wix has happened and all kinds of other things.
All these drag and drop builders are just out of control these days.
Yep. Yeah. So Trent, you've mentioned before that you kind of reached a point in your career where you felt like you were just getting by. Maybe you kind of felt like a hamster on a wheel. And, at that point, what was the most important thing that you did that you feel like you did to get out of that rut?
So that's a good question because I feel like I've been in that rut multiple times. And so I can't say I know what it is every time, but I think really it's been a process of discovering who I am and my why. And that's a big thing is, knowing why I'm doing this, why I'm want to be an entrepreneur. Both my parents were entrepreneurs growing up. And so I got to see some of the lifestyle and it's like, oh yeah, that's fun. But I didn't always see the hard times and all the difficulties that they went through. And so when those difficulties showed up, it was easy for me to be like, oh, this isn't the right business for me, because, my parents, I saw them, I'm the youngest. And so I saw them at their most successful in their entrepreneurial journey. And so it was like, oh, it shouldn't be this hard, and this just isn't the right thing. And I'd give up on the project. And through a lot of personal development over the years, I've realized that, that's just a test. You've got to keep going. You've got to keep trying. And my latest company I've been working on, it's been 3 years of nonstop trial. So I'm hoping that I come out stronger the other side.
Yeah, for sure. I think with every venture that you have, there are different challenges, and it's not, I agree. It's not necessarily one thing that's that kind of gets you through to the other side and to be successful. But I definitely can relate. And I think a lot of us can relate to that sort of just getting by feeling. So, yeah.
I love what you said, man, about, your parents being entrepreneurs and you not really seeing the struggle inside of it. And I think as parents, I'm a parent of 2 kids, even though times get tough, man, you don't want that to be a burden on them. And so I think, even though your parents, seem like they were killing it, right? I'm sure they had their ups and downs and their highs and lows. And I'm sure at the time it's almost like when you're a parent, you kind of take it upon your shoulders to embrace the suck and not let that be a toxic thing that trickles down into your life. Because if it does, and you can't find that good family work-life balance, and they can start deteriorating some relationships, right? And for me, I don't want to ever my 2 kids to look at me and see me as a failure, even though I might fail in my business or I might fail at some task at hand. I think a true entrepreneur, they'll find that edge, and they'll find that how to get out of that rut, even though you might find yourself there several times, like you said, and you might not be able to pinpoint exactly what caused it or why you're there. It's just the entrepreneurial journey, man. And that's how life is. And typically when you're a worker bee in some of these other businesses in a corporate job, you don't see those highs and lows, right? You just go into your job in your cubicle or whatever it is, and you're working, right? So you don't see what the CEOs and all the individuals deal with. So I just think that's inspiring, man, to know that you had family or your parents were those individuals that were like, hey, man, they didn't show the hard times, or you didn't visually see that, or actually, you didn't feel that specific thing to where, they're actually struggling. So that's cool.
Yeah. And that brings up a good point for me, in that I do need to share that more with my daughter, who right now, my oldest is 7, and she came to us this week, my wife and I, and said, we've given her tasks around the house when she's motivated to get something or do something. It's like, okay, you can work on this. And, she puts in the hard work to earn the money to get whatever she's after. But she's like, you know what? I want to start a business. Like she wants the business. And it's like, all right, I know you're 7, but we're going to learn some lessons here. Let's talk about inventory. Let's talk about budgeting. Let's talk about, all these things that normally when she's had like a lemonade stand, it's like, we'll just provide the lemonade and she can keep the $4 she made or whatever. But now she wants to do dog washing, dog walking, poop cleanup. Like she wants to do everything dog services except maybe grooming. And so, it's like, all right, well, let's go look at how much shampoo is. Let's go look at how much brushes are. We'll let you use some towels until you can afford to pay your own. And, just talking through all of the scenarios. And she's like, this is a lot of money. It's like, well, hold on, let's just back it up. This is, $100 worth of supplies, but if you do 20 dog washes, it pays for it. And then she's like, okay. And then if I do dog walking, that doesn't require any inventory. So that's just like profit. It's like,
Yeah.
there you go. You're getting it. The wheels are turning.
Service versus product. Yeah.
Yep.
Start to figure out the advantages of everything. I mean, that's awesome to have that kind of knowledge at 7 years old. Or first of all, to have that kind of ambition at 7 years old is amazing. And then, for you guys to really, instead of just being like, that's cool, but you'll learn it eventually. It's really neat to really, teach her what and really go through the process with her. And the earlier you can learn those things, I mean, they're just such great life lessons. Like business is such a great thing to understand, I think, from an early age. So,
yeah. I mean, I know for me, man, Trent, and I don't know about you, brother, but I know I didn't come from an entrepreneurial background. You obviously had parents that way. So I didn't get to see that portion of it. But I think that the impact that you're having on your daughter, man, is super cool, right? Like she's seeing that you're out there hustling, right? Or out there making it happen and trying to provide for the family. And just knowing that at 7 years old, I have a 7-year-old too, man. And he told me he wanted to be a kidtrepreneur. And I was like, dude, that's so awesome. Like just to hear him, he said, I want to be like you and I want to start my own business. Right. And so I'm sitting here asking him and grilling him too and asking him specific questions like, what do you want to do? What do you think you're going to be happy with doing? Right. What do you think? And just seeing him go through that process, man, is just cool and something that I'll cherish that I can, hopefully pass on down to him and say, look, it's not going to be easy, man. But at the end of the day, if you can figure out your why and you can figure out something that you're passionate about and strive for greatness, man. And there's the sky's the limit, right? We're our own worst enemies as entrepreneurs. And we typically are the ones holding ourselves back. And if we point the other finger at somebody and saying they're the reason we're being held back, that's the wrong answer, And I think you can't really let outside influences really impact how you make decisions in your business. Obviously, yes, to a certain degree, they do influence it, but it shouldn't hold you back. There should be a way that you can always strive for greatness, continue to move forward, and continue to make sure to not make any excuses, man.
Absolutely. There's some saying that I'm going to mess up, but if it's basically, if you want to see who has been holding you back and, not advancing your business, go look in the mirror.
For sure. I mean, that's a perfect saying. So Trent, after being a recent guest on your podcast, man, Hustle Today, which was a lot of fun, we both spent a little bit of time talking after the interview about that we realized we both have a lot more in common than we don't, right? And it was cool getting to have that instant connection with you, man, just by being organic and just raw with you. And I know that you love, and I think I read this on your LinkedIn bio, that you love spending time working on ideas that go from good to great. And that you've been running your own business in some form or fashion, which you just talked about selling baseball cards at the age of 6, I believe, and then web design in a web design company at the age of 14, reverse engineering everything, which is just nuts to me. How important is it for you though, with you just mentioning your daughter, how important is it for you to find that work-life balance with the love of your business and family?
Great question. So this has been helped by my wife a little bit, but the hours of 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. are like sacred in the household. I don't do any work during that time because that's dinner time to bedtime. Summer it's 9 p.m. or something. It's like I can work around those hours, but those hours I've got to be there for sports things. I've got to be there for, to have dinner with the family, to spend quality time with the kids, because honestly, growing up with entrepreneurial parents, they were so focused on the business that they weren't around a lot. And so, we had good moments in there and, they were doing what they thought was best for the family. So no judgment there, but growing up in that atmosphere, it's like I need to spend more time with my kids than my parents spent with me. I'm granted, again, I'm the youngest, and so it's a little bit different, being at the tail end of things. But I definitely learned from that I do need to spend some quality time with the kids. It's not necessarily going to be quantity, but it is definitely time where I need to just focus on them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, having those boundaries is good, and definitely it's something that we it's difficult to balance. Business and family, and it's tough to just kind of put the business aside sometimes. But it also, having that balance really ends up giving you more happiness in the long run. I think that sometimes the time away from business and just thinking about all the things that I have to do actually helps me more than just trying to dig in for another couple hours. Sometimes, especially when you're getting tired and you just need some time away. So it's really cool to be purposeful about that.
And I think it's important though to realize that we're only so productive with a set amount of hours anyways, right, throughout the day.
Mm-hmm.
I think as entrepreneurs that we do find ourselves stretching thin, and thinking we can get a lot more accomplished. And I think we've talked about this several different times on the show, that, it seems like if you don't have that strict, schedule or something that, okay, from 8 to 9, I'm going to read emails and respond to them or this and that, and allocate that time and prioritize is a huge thing, right? Knowing what you have to have done in a timely manner is huge, because there are things that can wait. There's things that you can have somebody else do, like a virtual assistant, like I have for my digital marketing agency. That things that are not pressing at the moment that I can kind of like pass on to somebody else, right? It's not passing the buck off, but at the end of the day, it is, right? Because you're like, hey man, this is important, but they can wait a week or two. But since I have somebody that does that for me, then I can go ahead and give it to them. And then when that week or two rolls around, it's there. And so I think, again, man, just, dude, that time with family, the time and just prioritizing with wife and kids, they need attention. And for me, my family worked from paycheck to paycheck growing up, right? And so it was one of those things that, again, even in the corporate world, or when my dad was working for UPS or doing whatever, there wasn't many family vacations. I mean, there wasn't a lot of family time outside of like, okay, I'm here on Friday night, now it's the weekend. It was one of those things that you get to see them for a few hours. And then, it's like crazy. And I remember strictly, like, I think it was high school when I took my first family vacation with my dad. And it was just like, I never want my kids to experience that. And it's nothing, like you said, you can't blame your family for doing what they think's best, but also they're trying to provide. And I remember I had no worries as a little kid about, dinner. I never had worries as a little kid about a living situation, whether it was in a trailer, whether it was in a house, wherever, right? I always had a roof over my head and I had food to eat. And so for me, it was one of those things that wasn't a worry, but it's one of those things as an entrepreneur, we always have to think about where the next dollar is coming from, because we have to make that money so this house can be over your kid's head and the food can be on the table.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So we've all had failures, or most of us, I'd say, as entrepreneurs have had failures, along the way, whether it's an entire business failed, or, there were big parts of that business that, we had issues with. And Trent, you've talked about how you've had some failures in business. And usually you can kind of attribute those to lack of persistence, or maybe quitting too early, which I thought was interesting. From your successes and failures, how do you know when a business just needs some more attention and when you need to just cut it loose?
It's a great question. I think so I've talked to some people about this on my podcast, and it's one great way to do it is to set expectations prior to starting the business. But what it really comes down to is back to that why. Why are you doing it? If you don't have that established beforehand, it's going to be pretty easy to give up. Sure. But if your why is to impact 1 million people, you're doing them a disservice if you quit early. But if it's just to make some money so you can get this next thing, well, then it's not going to be a lasting thing anyway. If your why is centered around money without a deeper cause behind it, then if you reach a stumbling block, then that may not be the case. That may not be the business for you.
Right. Yeah. It makes it a lot more difficult to keep going when you don't really know if it, like you said, if it's only about money. I mean, that's definitely the goal for a lot of people. You know, we're all trying to make money for sure. But if you're not offering something that customers want to, you know, find valuable and that they want to purchase, and, you know, then it kind of falls apart if you're only focused on the money part of it. So yeah, I mean, that's a great point. And it's so difficult. I mean, there have been a lot of times when I've just thought, man, I don't know if I need to just keep going. Is the pot of gold right on the other side of, you know, am I like right there? Or, you know, I still struggle with that, especially in one of my businesses, a product-based business. And, you know, it's doing well, but it's not where I want it to be. And I don't know if it can. Every day I feel more and more confident that it can. But it's been a matter of like, there's been many times when my business partner and I have just about called it quits. If we run into something like a manufacturing roadblock, we just can't get things made. It's like, well, if we can't make it, we can't sell it. So like, this could be it, you know, but then it's just something happens that we just decide to keep pressing on. And we're like, no, we've got customers. People are willing to pay money for our product. So we've got to there's something there, you know. We don't know we don't know what our total market potential is, you know, and so that's what we have to, you know, figure out. But still, you know, we just kind of like keep going, and then we get through something, and then we just have more of we get more hope, I guess, you know, we get more validation that, yeah, we're on the right track. But it's hard because there's definitely been times when it's like, man, maybe it's not a great use of energy to keep this going, you know?
Yeah. I think that, you know, relates back to, you know, what your dream is behind it, your why, because I mean, one person that I put kind of on a pedestal, you know, at one point was Andy Frisella, who, you know, is worth hundreds of millions of dollars at this point, you know, very vocal entrepreneur. But, you know, I met him last year, and, you know, I realized it was one of those things where it's like, I encourage people to meet your heroes because you'll realize they're just regular people. He's just a regular guy who had a dream and never gave up on it. And he talks about it very fully about how awful the first 10 years of his business was. He'd collected $50,000 total over the first 10 years of his business. And now he's worth hundreds of millions of dollars because he just kept going, because he was so deep rooted and saw the change. You know, his company is based around supplements, and he's like, I saw the change in people. I knew this was the right thing. I knew this is going to benefit people, whether the money comes or not, great, but I know I'm making a difference, and I'm going to keep at this until I can impact as many people as possible.
That's cool. Yeah. And sometimes it's just a matter of like, hey, if you can help one person, or if you can help 10 people, like that number is sort of arbitrary, you know, in terms of like how many customers you need to be successful. Well, yeah, obviously it definitely depends on how much revenue you want to make. But I mean, maybe you're completely happy making less revenue and just impacting, you know, a few customers' lives in some way. And then that's enough. Then it's like, all right, you know, that not making me wealthy, but right now at least, but it's like it, you know, it helps somebody else. And so it gives you some purpose, which, you know, which can really be everything. And that purpose alone, you know, besides the money, can be enough to just keep it going. You know, it's like, hey, this is enough for me now. And if it grows and it gets better and better, and I figure out different ways to make more money or to have more impact, then great. But if not, you know, it's good where it is.
I really think that when you take and what I'm getting out of this really is like adding value, you know, and it's the thing we talk about all the time, right? If we focus on adding value in everything we do, right? And that's what I'm passionate about. That's why we started the podcast, add value to other entrepreneurs' journeys, to ask questions, to let everybody know that being an entrepreneur is not always easy. But I really think, adding value, and you continue to operate that way on a daily basis, regardless of the monetary value that comes after that, it's going to happen, right? Money comes from educating somebody and adding value. Anytime you educate somebody, what are you doing? You're adding value to their situation because they didn't know that specific point or specific thing ahead of time. And so I love the fact that it's just like, hunker down and at the time you might like the individual you just mentioned, Trent, for 10 years, man, only make $50,000. And it's like, I'm pretty sure every day it was a struggle for him at some point to say, like, I have to tuck it in. I have to pack it up. I have to toss the towel in, man. Where's the white flag so I can wave it? But the persistence and him continue to move forward and not letting that deter him in any way. And like, it might've been hell, but dude, he walked through hell and came out on the end, and now he's balling, right? It's like he might have not have reached his end destination, but he always had that vision to keep going. And do that stuff like that's just inspiring, just in general. And that's really why we're doing this show, man. To have individuals like you on, to have individuals like that just have a story, and to hear that it's not easy. I mean, entrepreneurship, guys. If you come on our show and tell me from day one that you haven't failed, that you haven't succeeded, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, it's like that you've succeeded and you're done. Like you just packed it up and wrote the end chapter in your book and put the end on it and stamped it. Dude, no, man, you're not a true entrepreneur, man. It's like, times are tough from time to time, and you gotta, know your why, man. Trent, and you mentioning that and us talking about it several times on our show, man. I really believe firmly in that.
Absolutely.
So, brother Trent, man, let's go through your entrepreneurial journey from the highs to the lows, man. Just what has been the most difficult thing about being an entrepreneur?
Man, one thing.
It could be a few, man. We just typically you probably have a laundry list like all of us. But what is that one thing that you would really? And it could be a couple, man.
Yeah, honestly, it's getting out of your own head is the most difficult thing. And so, one thing that I love to do is, I will reach out to other entrepreneurs and see how I can help them. Totally trying not to be selfish with it, but it usually ends up helping me because it's like, what are you struggling with? And it's like, oh yeah, I can help you with that problem. I can help you figure that out. That's no big deal. And then it comes back to me. It's like, oh, well, if I can handle this person's problem, I can handle this little hiccup that I have of my own. So it's getting out of my own head because there's so many times that we've already talked about where we're the ones holding us back. And that is often the case. I feel imposter syndrome all the time where it's like, why am I even talking to this person? I shouldn't be here. I'm not worthy of this and all that stuff that runs through your head. That's honestly the hardest thing to get over. And it comes back to, the ask, it's like, why am I asking these people for money? I'm not anybody, I'm not somebody, and so it's been difficult to go through that. And I think it's going to be a lifelong process of trying to get over that, but that's probably the most difficult thing I deal with.
Yeah. Getting out of your own head is definitely difficult. That's something that, it's, you have to focus, and you have to be clear-minded enough to be able to run your business and make day-to-day decisions. And, but it's tough because there's some days when, you feel like everything's shooting off to the moon in a good way, and then the next day you're just feel like you're getting trampled on. So like trying to get out of your head and really just step back and be like, all right, it's just, it's mostly all about like, hey, do I have something valuable that somebody wants? Yes. Cool. Then it's just a matter of consistency, I think, for, and just executing. And if you just keep doing it day after day, and you're eventually most likely going to succeed. And yeah, the imposter syndrome thing, Clint and I have talked about that before, but it's tough. I'm sure there's like billionaires who feel imposter syndrome. They just get into a new market or something with a new business or whatever. And they just feel like, I don't know anything about this. I built $1 billion business doing X, Y, Z, but I know nothing about this thing over here. So like, what qualifies me to know about this? But then you just kind of realize, okay, if I did it before, I can do it again. And I think, the more experience you have in business and in life, you realize you have enough experience to be like, oh, I felt this way before about something else. And then I just learned more about it. I just, figured it out, and I felt more qualified, and so I can do it again, and that's that experience. Definitely, the more experience you have, the more it helps you get through things, because you're like, I can kind of done this before. I know, I know how to get through obstacles. So
yeah, that's kind of going to taking action. I mean, I saw a quote today that was 1 hour of action is worth more than 9 hours of studying. Like, it's just, you can get better at those things that you feel are holding you back if you actually just take the action and do it and work at it. And, going back to, helping other people and providing value, I usually find the days I'm most productive and get the most done is the days I'm helping other people, because it helps me feel like, all right, I can take this on. I can take this challenge on. Yeah. So it's been really beneficial for me to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. Sometimes helping other people really does kind of helps put everything in perspective too. Cause like you said before, it's like, oh, if I can help this person, I can help myself with whatever's going on. So yeah, it's very cool. Well, Trent, it's been awesome talking to you. And but before we wrap up the episode, could you share with us one piece of advice that you'd offer our listeners, to help them get through their entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah,
could be a couple too. Yeah.
I don't want to hit too much on, find your why, but that's something I encourage a lot of people to go through and discover about themselves. What is it that really motivates them? Because that's what you need to get through the hard times, because hard times will come. There's so many trials in business, but you need to know why you're doing it and what it is that motivates you. If you want, a Lamborghini, why is it that you want the Lamborghini? Is it because you just, want to have that image, or is there something else behind it? I want to have a giant house. Well, is it because I want to have those circumstances for my kids, or is it, again, just to flex on Instagram or something? It's, you got to figure out what it is that you really are passionate about and why you're doing it to get you through those hard times, because hard times will come.
Love it, man. I love it for sure. Well, guys, I think that's a wrap for this episode. From the both of us, Trent, we want to thank you, brother, for taking the time out of your day to join us and adding value to what we're doing on our podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate being on here. Hopefully somebody gets something out of this, but I appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks, Trent. It's been awesome having you on. Well, guys, thank you so much for listening to That Entrepreneur Life. To learn more about what Trent is working on, check out TrentVBray.com. If you like what you heard today, make sure to subscribe to our podcast on iTunes or any other major podcast directory. You can also find us on all the socials and on our website at thatentrepreneurlife.com.
And with that said, guys, we also want to quickly give a special shout out to our family and friends, like always, to include all of our listeners, followers, and subscribers. If you find value in our show, please consider making a donation. Even just a few dollars helps us keep things moving along and helps bring value to your entrepreneurial journey. Thanks for continuing to support what we do as entrepreneurs. And don't forget, guys, to join us next week for another episode of That Entrepreneur Life.
Thanks for listening to That Entrepreneur Life podcast. Be sure to visit thatentrepreneurlife.com to join the conversation, access our show notes, and discover our fantastic bonus content. Don't forget to join us next week for another episode as we continue to add value. Until next time.
don't forget to join us next week for another episode of That Entrepreneurial Life.